It's time to put your health in your own hands. Get ready to learn from today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Rachel Augusta. She was featured by the New York Times, CNN, BBC, and she was even on the cover of People magazine. Rachel works with animals all over the world who are sick, injured, have terminal illness, or suffer from age-related issues or trauma due to previous abuse. She is a certified Advanced Proficiency Healing Touch for Animals practitioner, which is the highest certification in the field. She has her own practice, works in hospitals, vet clinics, and rehab facilities and shelters. Rachel's business was featured in a best-selling Hay House published book, Women Rocking Business. She's been interviewed by the International Animal Protection Organization in defense of animals. She's been interviewed on numerous podcasts and radio shows, and she's a keynote speaker at various festivals, events, colleges, and workshops, spreading her message about the importance of preventative health care. And I am just really excited that you're here today, Rachel. So
thanks, Tammy. Thank you for having me here.
A little more about how did you get to this point where you're this animal advocate?
Well, I've been an advocate for animals for a long time in varying degrees. I'm an animal rights activist, but being an advocate for animals' health really started when my own fur baby and soul companion, Holly, my cat, got really sick. And what happened was my cat was diagnosed with a terminal illness at the age of 17, and the vet's response was so cold around the situation. She's old, she's going to die soon. What do you want me to do about it? Sort of response that it threw me into action. And, I know people listening or watching might think like, well, 17 years old is really old for a cat. And while that might be true, it's not actually. Like, cats live a very long life. There are cats that live into their mid-30s. So 17 sounds old, but it's not actually. I mean, it is senior, but it's not unheard of for animals to live longer than that. But it wasn't so much that she was old that threw me into action, of being upset over the vet's response. It was the vet's response of there's nothing that can be done. And I'm actually very grateful that was her response, because what it made me do was go on a mission to find out if there really was nothing that could be done, or if there was something else I could do to help her gracefully age for however long she was going to be here with me, or help her get it through it in the most pain-free possible way. But what I did know was that no one was going to help her if I wasn't going to be the person to do it. So that's where it all started. It started with my own experience of realizing that while Western medicine is great, and I'm so glad we have it, thank God we have hospitals. We all know somebody whose life has been saved by Western medicine and in a hospital, and I love, love, love that we have access to them. It is not the only answer.
As you were talking, it made me think of my experience with, my animals. And it's interesting because I recently lost 2 cats, and they were probably 16, 17 years old. And, as a human, we think for a cat, because we've all heard the dog year thing, that animals age 7 years for every, human year. And I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I do know that as a human being, my pets are my fur babies, they're my companions. And like you, I would want that compassion
Yes.
from my veterinarian or from
Yes.
other people. And one of the topics that I'm really interested in that you've talked a lot about in your different adventures speaking and everything is related to humans and our emotions and how we connect to our pets or how our pets connect to you, and that we're actually sometimes responsible for the fact that our pets are getting sick. Can you expand on that?
Yes, totally. So I will say at first that started off as just a theory of mine. I would go into these houses and to work with their animals, in private sessions, and the animal out of nowhere just got really super sick. It doesn't make sense. They are young, and all of a sudden this dog or cat or horse or bunny or whoever it is ended up with some really advanced disease out of nowhere. And it just didn't make sense. And then I would come to, and when I say it doesn't make sense, it's because they were kittens and puppies and, like they were young, they were in the prime of their life. The humans don't use toxic chemicals. They don't have Glade plugins in their house. Like it doesn't really make sense. But then I would start to know what was going on in the human's life. That just happens naturally. I'm in their home working with their animal. They're afraid for their animal's life. They start talking to me about the things that have been going on in their lives, and very naturally and organically. And what I would see was right around the same time the animal got sick, or maybe within a few months, maybe the human was diagnosed with breast cancer or was going through a really horrible divorce. And I had more and more people saying things to me like, my animal was perfectly healthy until I went through this really awful divorce. And, and things were stressful. Or my animal was healthy until my son died in a car accident. Just these sort of things that I was like, oh, I'm having this theory that this is connected. But in 2017, a group of scientists from the Department of Biology in Naples, Italy, they were able to prove that not only do animals smell our emotions, we've known for a long time that animals can smell our emotions. If you're afraid, a dog can smell that. We've known that. Animals can smell cancer. They can smell diabetes. They smell all sorts of things on us. So we've known that for years. That's been proven. But what we didn't know was that not only do they smell our emotions, but they feel them with us. So how does that connect, and why does that matter? So let's say you're having a horrible day at work and you come home and you're angry. Your dog would know based on your behavior, but they would also be able to smell that on you. And I would be able, if I lived with you, I'd be able to see that on you and know that you were angry. But let's just say you hate your job. You've hated it. You've been there for 3 years. It's causing anxiety and depression in your life. And you're miserable. Not only is that creating disease in your body is having a release of cortisol because it's in a constant state of fight or flight, which cortisol leads to tumors and tumors leads to cancer. This study from Italy showed that while your body is creating cortisol to deal with your emotional state, your beloved bonded animal companions, their bodies are creating cortisol as well. So you're both creating cortisol together. Cortisol leads to tumors. Tumors lead to cancer. So it's really important to know as well, and just understand that it's not all animals aren't going to be walking around feeling your feelings with you. Like the squirrel who lives outside my window isn't going to be thrown into depression when I have PMS, right? It's the animals that we have a deep bond with, that love us, that are, really connected to us. It's hard for them to see. Like if, let's say, you're going through a divorce, or maybe someone in your family has died and you've just been thrown into this horrible emotional state, they love you so much, they're going to go into that cave with you. And whatever is happening in your body, they are mirroring, and they're going through it as well. And, and this is horrible and this is hard because it's like, well, am I not supposed to feel my feelings? And the truth is yes, feel your feelings. You have to feel your feelings, but get out, like get in and get out. This is where it's like, we hear forever, like you need to be able to tap into your joy, like feel your feelings, but don't stay there. Don't go down that dark road that is going to, leads to nowhere but depression. It's bad for you and it's bad for your animals. And when they ask the scientists in this study, well, what do you do when you've like had a horrible day or you're in a bad place? And his response was take a shower, like literally wash the smell off of you. But to me, that's just a first step. And for some of us, that means we'd be showering all day long, like we don't have time to shower all day long. So really the answer is, how can you tap into your joy? And how can you find happiness in your life? Because it isn't just dependent, like it isn't just for you. It's for the animals you live with. And, and for anybody listening, just so you understand animals' noses, humans have 10 million neuron receptors associated with smell. A cat has 80 million and a dog has 400 million. Wow. So they're really smelling everything and then really feeling everything with you. Yeah.
That's amazing, because a cat, 80,000 versus 400,000 for
80 million.
80 million, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's just like, whoa, that's it. We just don't realize it. And I do know it is interesting because stress, we do whatever when we're stressed out. I notice like sometimes I'll smell myself and I'll say, oh my God, I can smell how stressed I am. And imagine what I smell like to the dog.
Right. They're like, what is happening, Tammy? What can we do? Do we need to go play Frisbee? What's happening? Yeah.
So I know that most people who have pets, they love them, that they're our companion. And I know for me, gee, if I didn't have my cats and my dog, who would I have? Because they do give you that unconditional love. And despite what people say about cats, they do bond.
Actually, there's a ton of studies coming out now saying they bond just as much as dogs do. Yeah, that was just a bunch of poppycock, saying that they don't. They very much are bonded with their humans.
My cats, they are afraid of other people, but me, I'm like mom. You're
their person.
Who they come to. My one cat even had her kittens on top of me. In my sleep. I woke up and the cat had kittens on me. So that was how much she trusted me.
Wow.
she was on top of me having kittens, and I woke up with kittens all over me.
So my really gosh.
Interesting. You talked about joy and relaxation and healing. And so how does that translate, you healing yourself and then you healing your pet or your pet healing with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good question. Yeah. So, one of the things too in this study, and that this is going to correlate with going into this, next question is, the other part of the study is that when an animal was diagnosed with a tumor or let's say cancer, the response of the human then is to freak out. We go into a state of stress. We're worried for them. And they were able to prove that the tumors then grow. So us being stressed out over their health can make them more sick. So yeah, I speak about joy and relaxation. Cortisol and those negative emotions that cause toxic chemicals in your body, they break down the body, but there are other chemicals and other emotions that can heal the body, like joy and relaxation. And, anybody who's listening who's like, oh my God, that sounds so woo-woo. How can joy and relaxation heal the body? Give me a break. It's actually, there's a lot of science behind it. So when you are happy or relaxed, your muscles relax. And when your muscles relax, your blood becomes oxygenated. And with oxygenated blood, your body can absorb nutrients more efficiently from food, from medication. Your stomach starts to create digestive enzymes. Your hormones regulate, your body detoxes, and new cell growth happens. That is called the physiological relaxation response. And that's also why if you go to the doctor with a broken arm, they're going to ask you what your pain level is. If you say 2, they're going to give you an Advil. But if you say I'm at a 10, they're going to maybe prescribe you a Percocet. They're not handing out painkillers because they feel bad for you. They're giving you a painkiller because you can't actually heal if you're in pain. That physiological relaxation response has to be triggered. And this is actually why CBD oils are so popular now, because it triggers this response in the body without the negative side effects. So if you can tap into your own relaxation or joy, you are triggering a response in your body that is getting your body to heal. Now, if you're in a constant state of stress or pain, you don't get to that place. And neither do your animals. And if your animals are really stressed out by you being stressed out because they're sick, no one's going to get there. And so you have to, in the animal, in yourself, how can we trigger this response? And you remember one of the pieces is you absorb nutrients more efficiently from your food. You think about cancer. Cancer is considered the wasting disease. You can eat, but you won't gain weight, continue to lose weight. There's no new cell growth. And, but if somebody, every time they're eating, their body's absorbing in the most efficient way, all of the vitamins and nutrients from the food that they can, that's awesome. And, and the other thing too, is it makes medications work more efficiently. So a lot of times if an animal is on chemo or you're on chemo or whoever's on chemo or on some sort of medication, if you can continually trigger that relaxation response, it's going to just help everything work much more efficiently and create new cell growth, which is what you want in the body. The last piece of that relaxation response is new cell growth. We always want new cell growth. That's what we're aiming for, whether you are healthy or not. You always want new cell growth. If you don't have no new cell growth, that's where cancer and other diseases start popping up in the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So besides medication, do you have any tips on how to trigger that relaxation response for both you and your pet?
Yeah, I do. So this is what I'd say. What triggers it in me might not be the same thing that triggers it in you, right? I personally love dancing to the Ramones. That triggers a lot of joy in me. It might not trigger joy in you, but even though Holly is no longer here, I can tell you what she would say. And by the way, I want to tell you, Holly was given 2 weeks to live. She lived an additional 3 years because of the work that I did with her. That is the power of the physiological relaxation response. Holly would say, this is where I feel like our animals are geniuses. Everybody thinks that, humans are much more spiritually evolved than animals. I'm like, no, animals have happiness and joy figured out. She would say, find the sunny spots. Connect with the people you love. And when I say find the sunny spots, it's like, go outside. Like, does going outside, walking and hanging out in the sun, it's going to give you your vitamin D. It's going to relax you. It's going to help you connect. Get the zoomies. I love that our animals, play and run, and they're getting, like, they're our teachers. We should be doing that too. Like, get up, move around. One thing I love about animals, and I know that you'll relate to this and you understand, is, and I think this is why we have such strong bonds with them, is they have the power to connect with us. They're so present. They're present and they connect, and we don't do that enough. Like, we need to connect with them. We need to connect with other humans. And, one thing animals don't do that other humans will do when you hang out with them is they don't pull out their cell phone and they're not checking Facebook when they're with us, right? They're just with us. They just are being present, and they're just with us. They're listening to us. They're communicating with us on a lot of different levels. And, and that brings so much joy and relaxation to us, right? Like just that deep connection with somebody brings so much relaxation. And so, connection, find sunny spots, get the zoomies, make muffins. Like, what do our cats and dogs teach us? To play, to be present, to connect, to enjoy our lives. One thing I love doing personally is I love baths. Like, I'm really into bath culture. And bath culture is not just, I'm going to jump in the bath really quick and then get out. It's, I'm going to make this the most glorious bath I can. I'm going to have a glass of wine or whatever, and I am going to completely submerge myself into this space. And I'm going to just spend time with me. I'm not going to sit in the bath and scroll Facebook or Instagram. I'm just going to be in the bath with myself and play some really nice music. And, and those are some of the things that I really do. And I try as much. And actually, the kitty I live with now, Sugar Pants, you guys have maybe been hearing her move around or seeing her if you're watching the video. One day she got the zoomies, where she's running around being crazy. And it occurred to me, you know what? every time she gets the zoomies, I'm going to get the zoomies. I'm going to get up and I'm going to run around. and it was so good. It was so good for both of us. I mean, I know the first time I did it, she was like, what is happening? I thought I was the only one that was supposed to be crazy, but it's so good for the soul. It's so good to get up and move, especially when people work in a situation where you're sitting all the time. Sitting, they actually have said sitting is the new smoker's disease. Like, it has the same effect on you as smoking, because it's not good for your heart. It's not good for your pelvic floor. It's not good for your body. And so getting up and moving, getting up in the middle of the day and just having a dance party, a dance break by yourself or with your animals, or, after work, going out and really connecting with people. I think those things are really important. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that, because I'm babysitting my son's dog, and she found a rubber bone, and I guess it had been lost, but she found it. She was so excited. All of a sudden, she's running around and she's got this bone, and she's, throwing it up in the air and doing all this stuff. And that lasted she played with that for like half a day, after she found it. And she was so happy. And you were talking about the bath, and it's interesting because whenever I take a bath, all of a sudden there's the dog, there's the cats, they're all in there with me, just hanging out. And it's really interesting how animals pick up on the relaxation of something, and they like to be in that energy.
Totally.
So how old, I mean, most of us, we either adopt animals from the Humane Society, and they may be at different ages. We might get a kitten. I mean, animals seem to come, into our lives at different ages. But if we're starting out, like making this big decision, like we're going to invite this baby animal into our lives, at what age should we start thinking about this, like all of this preventative stuff that, so that they're healthy, we're healthy, how do we prepare to have an animal companion?
Yeah, I love that question. My answer is now, like right now. One of my biggest regrets with Holly was that she was the person I was learning with. I wish she wouldn't have been my, my learning tool. I wish she would have been the person that, I already knew this stuff with. And now that she's been gone for a few years, I can take a step back and say, oh, there was a lot of tumultuous stuff going on in my life that really probably led to her disease. I can't prove it. Of course, nobody can. And I can't blame myself for it. And nobody really can, because if you don't know what you don't know. But preventative healthcare is really great for everybody. Right now, like whether you have kittens and puppies, or you have older animals, or you have animals that are in the prime of their life, like worrying, well, not even, you don't even have to worry about it. Just starting on the preventative healthcare is going to set them up for success regardless of wherever they are in their life. And it's never too late to start. And sometimes it's like, well, what what do I need to be thinking about? And it's like, well, how about you just start thinking about your own emotions? And, that's going to be some really great preventative health care, is bringing some happiness into your life. It's really, at the end of the day, that's what your animals want for you. They want you to be happy. They want you to enjoy your life. And I think there are little symbiotic partners in that respect. They help keep us alive and we help keep them alive. And that's really what they want for us. And so just thinking about that, like, how can I bring some relaxation into my home? How can I bring some happiness into my home? Does that mean just playing soft music? Humming to myself, taking a walk, going on a nice walk outside and not rushing it, but just being outside. That's all preventative healthcare. Even though maybe it doesn't sound like it, it really is. And it's some of the best preventative healthcare out there.
It's so interesting as you're speaking. I go outside, and of course they'll go out with the dog, and then all of a sudden the cat pops up, and the cats, I'll walk around and I'll have this little parade of, the animals and me, and, they're just following around to be in together. And it's really interesting. So is there anything else that we can do to just keep everybody healthy and humans and pets?
Totally. So when people come to me with animals who are really sick, there's two main things that we go to look at, above all else. The smell in the house, like what's stinky in here? And it's going to be the human emotions. They're stinky. If you remember, like, animals smell everything. So what does it smell like? What's your personal perfume? Do you smell like depression and anxiety, or do you smell like relaxation? Let's look at that. And the other stinky thing we look at is the toxic chemicals in the house. So if you think about preventative health care, you want to get the toxic chemicals out of your house. They did a study. It's something like 70% of American households use Glade plugins, something crazy like that. Glade plugins are terrible. They cause cancer. And anything with man-made fragrance, and I say man-made fragrance specifically because then people are like, well, what about burning sage? Sage is not man-made. Sage is a plant. It's just wrapped in some twine. That's fine. Any man-made fragrance is going to be extremely toxic, not only to your animals, but also to you. And so I'll just name a couple of those things really quickly. And of course, people can always go to my website because I talk about it in more detail. But candles, scented candles, super, super toxic. Not only is the fragrance toxic, and keep in mind, if you can smell, let's say, a Yankee candle, and you have 10 million neuron receptors associated with smell, your dog has 400 million. And so the example I like to use is, imagine walking into Macy's or Nordstrom's. You get to the perfume counter. Multiply that times 40. Would you actually be able to be in that space without feeling sick? That is often what we do to our animals, which we just don't realize it. So candles, wicks, the wicks made with candles are made with lead. So you're burning lead in your home. Incense is really toxic. It actually damages the DNA. And a lot of people are like, what? Wait, what? But incense has been around for thousands of years. Not the way they make it today. That was a different incense. I mean, honestly, they were probably just burning sage or sticks, or Palo Santo wood. The incense we have today is not what they were using 3,000 years ago. And, any toxic cleaners, all sorts of stuff like that. You want to get that stuff out of your house. If you think these neuron receptors trigger your nervous system, they're breaking down the nervous system in your animal's body. And breaking it down. I went into this house where they thought the cat was having neurological brain damage. No, the cat wasn't having neurological. Yes, the cat was poisoned. They'd cleaned the floors with pledge, which is super toxic. But, so much of why our animals are sick is because of what we can smell in our house. There was a cat I was working with who had lost more than half his body weight because of the potpourri in the house. And though a woman had bowls of potpourri. So getting that stuff out. And then, so fragrance is a hormone disruptor. So if you go back to the physiological relaxation response that I described earlier, that you can get through joy and relaxation or pain medication, whether it's Percocet or CBD oil, one of the things that happens with that physiological relaxation response is that your hormones regulate. Well, fragrance is a hormone disruptor, which means that your hormones never regulate, which means that you never get to new cell growth. So that's super important to remember. Fragrance disrupts the hormones. New cell growth doesn't happen. So if your animals are have cancer or on chemo, or they're not on chemo, it doesn't matter. If you're trying to do all this natural stuff, but you're cleaning your floors with bleach and you're burning candles and you got Glade plugins, it's not going to work, because they never get new cell growth. And new cell growth is imperative. If your animals are sick, you need them to have new cell growth. If your animals aren't sick, you need them to have new cell growth. Like, we always want to be having new cell growth. That's what keeps us young and alive, right? And so, getting the stinky stuff. And if people want to know more about fragrance or what I'm talking about, there's a really great documentary out there called Stink. And it's on Netflix and it's in other places. But he really goes deep into the science of it, and about how fragrance isn't regulated at all by our government. In fact, you can buy a $300 bottle of perfume and it's just petroleum. And so, that's something to really think about.
Well, I know for a fact that incense is awful, because I made myself and the dog very sick burning incense. I had never burned incense before, and then I did. And within a couple days, my entire head was totally clogged. I was coughing, and I noticed the dog was coughing too. So both of us were coughing, and that was the only thing that I had done different, was I burned some incense, and again, I got highly clogged up. I had, allergic reaction, and it took quite a while to get over that. So I know that you're right. And smells, if you think about how smells trigger us, bad smells, good smells, cleaning smells, everything. So what about things like vinegar?
Vinegar's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, vinegar's fine. There's it's really the chemicals, the man-made fragrance, I know a lot of people who clean with vinegar. That's fine. Sage is fine. I clean with lemon and some other, things like that. And I use Young Living. They have a cleaner called Thieves, and it's safe to use around animals and babies. And a lot of people will use it on their floors when they have babies crawling around, because you think about that too. Like, your animals are walking through it, and then they groom themselves. Right. And so you want to make sure that whatever they're grooming off of themselves isn't bleach or a really toxic, Swiffer jets. Right. I used to use a Swiffer jet. I had no idea how toxic and bad they were. And you think, well, wait till the floor is dry until the animals walk through there. It doesn't really work that way. And, we have a lot of pores in our feet, and they do as well. And, we can put a piece of garlic between our toes and taste it in our mouth within 20 minutes, like, you absorb a lot through your feet. And so we're talking about our animals and like how to keep them safe, but you really, like, why not us too? Do this for you, do this for the humans in your house, do this for the whether it's the two-leggeds or the four-leggeds, like, you want everybody to be healthy and happy. And one of the best ways to do that is if everybody feels well. Our happiness is so connected to our physical, how we feel physically. And, why not get those toxic chemicals out of our house, regulate our own hormones, have new cell growth in our body, be absorbing nutrients more efficiently in our bodies. That's going to just set everybody up for success. But yeah, I'm not surprised that you had that experience with incense. And I'm working with a client. Their cat has a respiratory infection, and, she burns a lot of incense, and we had to have a like come to Jesus conversation about it, because I can do a bunch of work with your cat, but if you're not going to stop burning incense.
Well, I know for a fact, incense, bug spray.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, bleach. And and if you think about it, and I live in Florida, so what, 99.9% of the time I'm walking around barefoot in my house. So that means anything that would be on the floor, I would be absorbing. And the same with the animals. They're walking around.
Totally.
They groom themselves.
Yeah, they groom themselves. And, one thing to think about too is like, you think about all natural products, like let's say seventh generation, seventh generation, you can get it at a natural health food store. You can get it at Target, Walmart, wherever. It's, it's a dish soap. They have dish soap, and I think they have laundry detergent and stuff. And it's better for the environment. Well, some of it still has fragrance in it, which would still make it toxic. So even if it's all natural, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not toxic. Like, so if you're going to go and buy, seventh generation or one of those I think even Clorox makes one now that's like all natural, but if it says fragrance in it, it's not good for you and it's not good for them. And so that's, to make it easy for people, because sometimes it's like you start hearing this information, you're like, oh, this is overwhelming. I don't know how to do all of this. That's too much. Turn around a container and at the bottom, just see fragrance. Yep. Okay. I don't want that.
Right.
I'll get the one I'll get fragrance free. Fragrance free. Whether I'm buying my deodorant, fragrance free. Like, you don't want any of that on you or your animals. It's like I said, watch the documentary Stink. And you'll really understand the concept of, I don't want man-made fragrance around me.
Well, I'm as I've gotten older, I notice I'm more sensitive to smells. And like I said, both me and the dog, I'm going, oh my goodness, the dog's even coughing, what did I do? And it was the incense. And so,
I've noticed, I've worked with animals who've gone into kidney failure over incense.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's, it's not worth it. And it's like, I love candles too, but they're not worth it. And sometimes you can find a candle that is fragrance free and the wick is not made with lead, and that's awesome, but that's not the normal,
right?
So
you might just get the little,
orange
candle.
A fake candle, or people will take an orange and cut it. Just
ambiance.
Totally. It's just the ambiance that you want.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to talk to you about basically anything, or they want to work with you with the healing touch, because you actually work with people with the healing touch also. And then obviously it sounds to me like you can evaluate a situation like, why is my animal sick? And you go in and evaluate the situation like, oh, you're burning incense, you're burning candles, you're cleaning with bleach. Check, eliminate this.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way to get in connection?
Awesome. Yeah, they can do private sessions with me where it involves coaching them through stuff and helping the animal, building up the animal's immune system. But I also have a membership site for women and their fur babies, where they get kind of constant access to me, and we do group live healings once a month to help the women with their emotions and work with their animals. But really the best way to get in touch with me is through my website, rachelaugusta.com. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I have Instagram. I have LinkedIn. I have all of that. And those links are all on my website. And my website lists all my services and what I do. And you can, it's rachelaugusta.com. Thank you. And I actually have on my website for free, you can go download an audio track to listen to with your animals that triggers the physiological relaxation response in you and your animals to help build up their immune systems. And that's free. It's just on my homepage.
Wow, rachelaugusta.com. And I like that. That sounds like something. I know that my animals would really appreciate that, because they do. It's very interesting. Like, for example, the dog is a boarder, let's call it a guest. and the cats rule. And I told the dog when it moved in, I said, look, the cats are the bosses. So if you're going to be here, you have to. And the dog's like, okay. And it's amazing to me that the cats, they told the dog who was boss, and the dog was like, okay. But it is amazing how when you actually talk to your animals and tell them, kind of the rules, that they do understand it.
Totally. Oh, totally. Yeah, there's actually an awesome book called Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, but he talks about other animals as well. And he's able to scientifically prove that you have no secrets. Your animals know everything. They're reading everything you're thinking, everything you're saying. And, it's telepathy. Everything we think and say, we create images for in our brain, and they're reading those. Yeah. Yeah.
And my cat is actually a better alert animal than the dog, I noticed. The cat was sitting on the couch and the dog was next to her. The cat immediately alerted that somebody had come up the driveway, and maybe 2 minutes went by, and then the dog barked. But the cat was it was looking at the door, and I'm like, what's going on? But I noticed, we don't give cats enough credit for all the things they do for us, because
totally
they're very in tune and they do bond to us. And again, as you can tell, I'm a cat person. So Rachel, thank you so much. So everyone, make sure you go to rachelaugusta.com, get that free meditation audio recording to learn about how to relax. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, just, if they're thinking, what can I do? Focus on your emotions and getting the stinky stuff out of your house. Like, just ask yourself, what does my personal perfume smell like? And that's a really great start.
Well, I really agree. And it's true. Again, I've lived it. We do the stupid things, but like burning candles and incense, and they do make you sick. So be really careful. So with that, everyone, be sure to go to rachelaugusta.com. Meanwhile, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. To get more solid health and wellness information, visit optimalhealthradio.com.